Man Up, a program dedicated to inspiring and helping men live lives of heroic virtue. And now, it's time to man up.
Welcome to Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio. We are broadcasting on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network. I am Joe Stopulos, and today I am going to explore the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. I think this book is there's a reason it's a #1 New York Times bestseller. There's a reason you see it in almost like every business office I think I walk into nowadays. You see this book, and so I read it, and obviously, there's a lot of great takeaways for life in general, which we'll talk about, and business specifically. But I think if you just put a little bit of a spiritual lens on this book, it can yield tremendous fruit in our spiritual lives as well. Let's start in prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our defense against the wickedness and the snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. Do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. So I've mentioned a lot of these types of books before in the past, and I figure this is going to be another one that's just kind of regurgitating a lot of things I've already read. In some ways it was. In some ways it obviously has to build upon a lot of the work, and he actually quotes a lot of the books I've talked about in the past, but he builds a system that can help us. I think it's more practical than a lot of the other books I've discussed in the past regarding habits and habits formation. So to me, the ones that I've always stuck out to me would be one, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. So that really gets into the science, the psychology around habits. Highly recommended that book. It's a great book. It stuck with me for, I don't know, I probably read 7-8 years ago. But a really good book on like helping you to fully understand how habits work, how they form within the brain, how to change them. Because we are, at the end of the day, why this is important, why any of this is important, is because we essentially are the product of our habits, right? What we do habitually is what we are, right? So I've talked about this in regards to the virtue, right? A person who does a virtuous act one time is not a virtuous person. The person who makes one prudent decision is not a prudent person if the other 99 before that were very imprudent, right? A person who acts with self-discipline one time is not a disciplined person. They just got lucky, The other 99 times before that, they let themselves go. So the point of that is our habits really are who we are in a lot of ways. So the other books that I think about when I read about habits and practice and these things, Grit by Angela Duckworth is a really good one, talking about how we have a capacity to increase the amount of grits we can have. But at the same time, everyone has a capacity. Everyone has a maximum level that they can get to. And so that's why we'll get to, when we get into the book here in the next chapter, about how we each need to maximize the ability for us to use basically grit when necessary. So you don't want to be using it all day long, because you will run out of it eventually, and then you will succumb to giving in to whatever the temptations are, or lack of prayer, or whatever these things may be in your life. So Grit was another great one. Peak by Anders Ericsson's really good. That's another book that kind of talks more about deliberate practice, but that kind of plays into this a little bit too, about creating a habit-forming lifestyle around great practicing when it comes to whatever it is you're doing, whether it's in business, whether it's in prayer, whether it's in music or anything like that. So this book, Atomic Habits, again, I finally picked it up and read it. And I think when we look at especially the spiritual life, when it comes to building virtues, when it comes to building a habit of prayer, this book can really help all of us to get better at that. So stick around. We're headed to a short break, and we'll be right back.
St. Vincent de Paul, our sponsor, celebrates their 100th anniversary this year.
Steve Halfman, CEO of St. Vincent de Paul here, and what an incredible 100 years it's been, as we are now serving over 33,000 of your neighbors with food, clothes, workforce training, and reentry services.
That's so many people, Dad. Did that include kids too?
Yes, Zoe, that includes kids too. Please donate to our thrift stores and pantries.
Donate, volunteer, shop. St. Vincent de Paul.
Iowa Catholic Radio thanks St. Vincent de Paul for their support.
Each fall, InterVisions Healthcare hosts a fantastic evening of food and fun with the local Knights of Columbus. Columbus. Join us as we dance the night away on Saturday, September 21st at St. Thomas in Indianola. All the proceeds from the catered dinner and auctions benefit the life-affirming work the nursing staff provides to women with unplanned pregnancies. For more information, visit ivhcare.org or give us a call today. We look forward to seeing you on September 21st as we dance for life at St. Thomas Aquinas in Indianola.
Thank you, Intervisions Healthcare, for your support of Iowa Catholic Radio.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by the Sarah Vocations Ministry. Sarah is an apostolate dedicated to the support of new and existing vocations to the priesthood and consecrated life. Learn more at joinsarah.org, joinserra.org.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio provided by the law offices of Amanda T. Adams. Catholic-owned and operated, Amanda can help with business formation, contracts, commercial transactions, and other business legal matters. Learn more at amandatadamsjdlaw.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio comes from A New Look Exteriors, an Anderson-certified contractor providing custom window installations, roofing, siding, gutters, concrete, and more to help give your home a new look. Learn more at anewlookexteriors.com. Iowa Catholic Radio welcomes Nashville musicians Phoenix Mendoza and Drop Dead Dangerous for a concert benefiting Mary's Meals, 6 p.m. Thursday, August 29th at the Jasper Winery in Des Moines. Learn more at iowacatholicradio.com.
My help comes from you. You're right.
Welcome back to Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio. Going to dive into Atomic Habits, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones by James Clear. And I think it helps to maybe start the exploration out with an example he gives pretty early on. And I think why this matters for us is, he says, when we repeat 1% errors day after day by replicating poor decisions, making tiny little bad mistakes, and rationalizing little excuses, our choices compound into toxic results. It's the accumulation of many missteps, a 1% decline here or there that eventually leads to a problem. The impact created by a change in your habits is similar to the effect of shifting the route of an airplane by just a few degrees. Imagine you are flying from Los Angeles to New York City. If the pilot leaving from LAX adjusts the heading just 3.5 degrees south, you'll land in Washington, D.C. instead of New York. Such a small change is barely noticeable at takeoff, the nose of the plane just moving a few feet. But when magnified across the entire United States, you end up hundreds of miles apart. And I think it's a great way to kind of set up this idea of building habits, right? So these little tiny things that we're doing throughout our lives, things that are not even noticeable. And again, we talked about this a little bit in the episode on getting better 1% a day, just these small incremental things you don't even notice. Little bad decisions that you don't even notice at once, but compound over time. Hopefully, we all understand that. So really what I'm thinking in the context of the Man Up Show, right? So we look at Atomic Habits when this book has lots of examples of diet and exercise and business and people who want to write or give good at music. And so a lot of things in the secular world. But I think all the things we're going to discuss today can really work around a framework of a lot of the things I talk about on this show. Namely, let's start with prayer, number one. All of us know we need to get better at prayer. I'd say in general, the person who prays the most, I mean, there's very few people who think they need to pray less, right? I just don't think many of us fall into that category. Things like overcoming pornography, eating healthy, fitness, becoming a better father and a better husband, and then things at work, if you have goals at work as well. So that's kind of the framework that I'm thinking about for all of us that are thinking about habits in our life. It can be anything, right? So getting rid of a bad habit or trying to start a good habit. So I mean, obviously prayer, good habit. We want to start that. If we're lust, pornography, things like that. Bad habit, healthy eating. If we're eating poorly, bad habit. Trying to increase. What are these systems that we can put in place? I think that's a good way to start is with the systems, because he talks kind of an overarching thing that he talks about is forget about goals, focus on systems. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, this is a kind of a reoccurring theme within the book is that he says, people have a goal to run a marathon. People have a goal. Let's use an example of I want to pray 30 minutes a day or something. And let's start with a marathon one. You can't just get up and run a marathon. And even, quite honestly, like the idea of I'm going to run a mile today and 2 miles the next day and 3 miles, it gets daunting over time. And so focus on a system, creating a system that would allow you to achieve the thing that you're trying to achieve. Okay. He also talks about habits are a path to change your identity. So thinking of yourself as a runner, okay? So if I'm going to be a person that's going to run a marathon someday, I'm going to think of myself today as a runner, as a person who runs. Okay, so I'm going to change my identity. A person who runs does what? Well, a person who runs, well, first off, he'll probably buy the shoes. He'll get out of bed at some point, or he'll create a system around running. It takes a priority in his life that he becomes a runner. Now, obviously, if you are 40 pounds overweight and you can only run 1 mile, you today are not a runner. But if you start identifying as that, and you're shifting your mindset and creating a system whereby you run, you will start to see these things start happening. Okay, so you just start becoming the kind of person who runs. So let's think about with prayer, right? I want to be become the person who wants to pray. In doing that, in making that kind of shift of, okay, I am a person who prays, and you wake up every day and you realize that's an identity that you want to assume. Okay, so focus on a system that will allow you to achieve that goal. What are the things we can put together within our lives that will allow us to maintain a healthy, consistent prayer life? Okay, so that's a big piece of this is about systems. All right, so when he gets into the actual details here, something he calls the habit loop, the 4 laws of behavior change. He says cue. There's a cue to all of these things. There's a craving, a response, and a reward. So when you think of a cue, today you may, you get out of bed, you brush your teeth, or you drink your coffee, brush your teeth, whatever these things are. The cue there is I got out of bed and then I did the things, right? So there's these ideas of just things that naturally happen within your life that you can stack a habit on top of. Okay, so let's just say right there, if your goal is to pray more, you could say, as soon as I turn the coffee button on, or as soon as I grab my coffee, that's the cue. So you're going to have coffee every day. That's the cue then to pray. I'm going to pray for 15 minutes. So you could somehow make a list of that. So one way he starts even prior to that is just make a list of everything you do every day. Well, you get out of bed, you get dressed, you have coffee, you eat breakfast, you eat lunch, you eat dinner, whatever. There's things that you do every single day. And how can you then take something like prayer or eating healthy or whatever these things are you're going to work on and place them next to one of those things? Okay, just force them into, all right, when I eat breakfast, I do this. Okay, when I eat lunch, I can, take 5 minutes before that and pray. Okay, that's called habit stacking. After blank, I will blank. And one of the other ones, so this is talking about making this thing obvious, it's called environment design. Habits can be created more easily in new environments. If you want to learn to play guitar, leave it in the middle of the room, not in the closet. Okay, so same thing with prayer, right? So leave Bibles in the middle of the room if you want to. Have a prayer place where you pray, and then you walk by it and you say, oh, that's the place where I pray. It obviously, when we talk about how to break a bad habit, we'll get into that as well, about, environment matters there too. If you're trying to eat healthy, I've talked about this 1,000 times, don't just leave jars of M&Ms sitting around your house where you can just grab them left and right. Don't have any candy in the house. But so this is still on the positive side. So if it's fitness, if it's healthy eating, whatever these things are, create an environment whereby you are always working towards those goals. Again, the kind of person who is healthy. I know people who are super. I had Jay Fryermuth on the show, for our health and fitness. That guy's one of the healthiest guys I know. I would never see him just leaving, a box of candy in his office because he understands that it's a temptation that he doesn't want to get into. Same kind of thing, right? So we had to build an environment by which we can achieve the goals that we want. So that's on cue. Make it obvious. The next part is craving. Make it attractive. Okay, so there's a reason we get into bad habits. Like, things are attractive, right? Just in general, candy is attractive. Lust is clearly a way that Satan uses to attract us to making bad decisions because it clearly works. Again, it is attractive to sit and watch TV. That you get an immediate response of dopamine from sitting down and watching TV or being on the internet. And so on the flip side of that, we have to make the good habits attractive. Okay. So he calls it temptation bundling, creating attractive behaviors while doing something that you really enjoy. He uses an example of this guy who's, this is pretty extreme, but you'll hopefully drive the point home, of a guy who wanted to run more, but he loved Netflix. So he watched like a ton of Netflix and documentaries and movies and whatnot. But he really wanted to pick up running. So I think he's a computer engineer or something. Jimmy rigged it such that he had a treadmill, and the only way he could watch Netflix is if he had the treadmill at a certain speed. So he physically had to run in order to watch Netflix. So now, somehow translate that into what you're looking to do. You can take something you enjoy doing, right? So find something you enjoy doing and put a good habit on top of that. Okay. So, another thing would be to have a motivation ritual. So choose rituals to start the day and prepare you for a specific situation. There is another piece of this, and this happens multiple times, about imitating, about tribes. So he says we imitate the people who are close to us, the many. So like we imitate people who there's a lot of people doing a certain thing, and the powerful. So join a culture where the desired habit is normal behavior, and you already have something in common with the group. I obviously have talked about this a lot when it comes to choosing your friends, right? The 5 closest friends you have, you're going to be more like them. If you are around people who are eating healthy, if you're around people who pray a lot, if you're around people who are already good husbands and good fathers, if you're around people who are striving for greatness, if you're around people who openly talk about how pornography is bad and we're trying to avoid it, those are only going to help you in creating better habits, because now you have a system of people who are going to hold you accountable and lift you up in trying to achieve these great things. Okay. So again, making this craving for prayer, let's say specifically, or eating healthy, make it attractive. What can you do to bundle that with something that else you already do that you enjoy doing, right? So again, that's where the coffee would come in. Again, I'm kind of going back to that example a lot, but if I really enjoy coffee in the morning, I cannot have coffee until I pray 15 minutes, something like that. Response. So cue, craving, response. Make it easy. Repetition, not perfection. So with repetition, you perform a behavior unconsciously and effortlessly. So that is how you build a habit. Habits are formed by frequency, not time. So you just had to do them over and over and over. And at the beginning, you might have to white knuckle a little bit, right? I remember when I first started working out, I had to white knuckle. There's lots of days where I did not want to work out. And eating healthy was the same thing. I mean, it just takes a long time sometimes to get into these habits. But the more you do them, the more you stick with them, the more they become who you are. Again, you can identify. I never in my life would have identified as a reader or someone who was into fitness or any of these. Like, never once would I've ever identified as those things. But over time of doing them and getting into the habits of reading and working out and praying more, I became the kind of person who identified as someone who would do that. Okay. Reduce friction. Prime the environment for the future so there is no friction. Again, back to having the prayer table, having it all work out right there for you. Again, I would also add in back to the environment and the friction. If the goal is to be a better husband or to eat healthy or whatever these things are, create an environment where those things are there. So like, let's say video games are, this is kind of breaking a bad habit, but they're keeping you from being a good father. You're playing too many video games. You're watching too much Netflix. It might be time to just like pull it out, like say, nope, for the next month, I'm going to just not do any of that. Which will then give you the ability to concentrate on what you're trying to do to create that new habit. He has what's called the 2-minute rule. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. Okay, so this is pretty extreme, but he's saying, let's say the habit for running is just tying your shoes. That's what he would say the habit is. You don't even have to go for the run. You have to put your running shoes on. He would say, get dressed and put your running shoes on. That's the new habit you're going to form. Now, chances are, if you're going to go to the work of putting the running shoes on, you're probably going to go for a run, but you don't want to say, I'm going to go for a 5-mile run. That's not the goal. The goal is I'm going to put the shoes on. So maybe going back to healthy habits for us in the spiritual life, it's I am going to, before I drink my coffee, I'm going to touch a Bible. I'm going to put it in my hands. 2 minutes. It has to take less than 2 minutes. Okay. That's maybe what you have to habit stack. It's to put, I'm going to place a Bible in my hand, period. And then, you might go for 15 minutes just from that. But he says when you're starting, make it very easy, very attractive. And then also it's something that you can automate. Whenever you can, automate good habits and automatically eliminate bad habits. Okay, so it's cue, craving, response, and now reward. Make it satisfying. It has to have immediate satisfaction. So add a little bit of immediate pleasure to habits to have them pay off in the long run. So now I go back to I make my coffee, but I can't drink it until I touch a Bible. Now I'm going to touch the Bible, and now I'm going to probably pray, and now I can have the coffee. Right? So there's the immediate satisfaction. Okay. For, whether it's, healthy eating or something like that, maybe you get to have a sparkling water or something afterwards. I'm coming up with ideas on the fly here, but you get the point. Make something, if you're going to start a new habit, something immediately satisfying, because your body craves dopamine, right? So the reason we have all bad habits is because we get dopamine hits from a lot of these bad habits. And so if you can figure out a way to create a dopamine hit within the good habit. A personal loyalty program. So, he talks of this idea of, there was a person who they couldn't save for a trip. They wanted to save money, this couple. They were looking for a way to do it. And so they did is every time they didn't go out for coffee or didn't eat out at a meal, they would take the money they would have spent and put it into a jar. And the jar said, savings for European vacation or something like that. So if you can come up with a way to track your habits, right? And reward yourself, right? So if you have a calendar that says how many days in a row you've prayed or whatever these things are, you can track your progress. You can see how you're doing and reward yourself for those various things. So that's really what he has in mind for creating good habits. It's cue, craving, response, and then rewarding yourself. On the flip side of that, how to break a bad habit. So he talks about reducing exposure. To me, this is probably the most obvious one. So this is back to the healthy eating, back to the pornography. It's really hard to break a pornography habit if you have unfettered access to the internet at all times, right? It just really is hard. So you have to have things that covenant eyes. You have to have a partner. You have to get rid of the phone if you have to, right? So whatever those things are, you just got to do it, right? So, there's just have to take it seriously and create a better environment for yourself. Same thing, right, with healthy eating. If your pantry is full of chips and junk, you're not going to do it, right? If you have all these distractions around your house that are keeping you from being a better husband and a better father, and these distractions are there, right? You've analyzed it, it. It's time to clear them out, to get rid of them. Right. If you have things that distract you from prayer, you have to get rid of them. So all these bad habits, it's the same kind of thing in the inverse, right? So we have to reduce the exposure. Whereas when we're forming a good habit, we want to make it as easy as humanly possible, right? Put the Bible right there, prayer table right there, healthy food right here. We have to create the environment for good habits. We also have to do the same thing on the flip side for bad habits. So we have to get rid of the bad habits. We have to minimize the possibility of them possibly coming into our life. And that's going to look different for every person. I got that. But you have to reduce that exposure. Reframe your mindset. So highlight the benefits of avoiding your bad habit and make it as unattractable as humanly possible, right? So the first part is we're trying to make it invisible. So it's hard to even see, to give ourselves the inclination to the bad habit. And the next thing is we have to make it unattractive. Lastly, increase friction. Increase the number of steps between you and your bad habit. Make it difficult. So whatever the bad habit is in your life, not only do you want to have an environment where it's difficult to get it, you have to then create extra steps for getting the bad thing. Okay. I think there's lots of ways we can do this in our life, but understanding that the more difficult you make a bad choice from being, the less chance you're going to have of doing it. And then lastly, create a contract. So he got some pretty extreme examples here of this guy who wanted to lose weight and would bet thousands of dollars if he missed a single day. That's very extreme, right? But desperate times call for desperate measures, right? So maybe you do have an accountability part, and you say, if I fall one time in whatever the thing is I'm trying to do, I'm going to give you $100. There is a number, right? There is a number where if you held yourself, and this guy literally wrote a contract up and signed it and the whole thing, and he ended up losing tons of weight. But the idea is there is a number where the pain of having to pay this thing out would be way more than succumbing to the bad habit. Okay. So all that to say, accountability partners are very, very important in this too, but you could also create a contract where you're going to say, if I do X, I'm going to have to give you Y. I'm going to do Y, and create enough pain. The goal of all these things in the bad habits is to create as much distance between us and pain for us in possibly succumbing to the bad habit. Okay. So he says at the end, this is a continuous process. There is no finish line. Small habits don't add up. They compound. Make habits enjoyable. Fall in love with boredom. I think that's a great line. So you want to be bored of these good habits. You want to be able to just know that they're happening. Okay. You want to have them be effortless. 3 pretty great quotes out of this that I thought would be worthwhile. It says, success is a product of daily habits, not once in a lifetime transformations. It's really good. It's product of daily habits, not once-in-a-lifetime transformation. Time magnifies the margin between success and failure. It will multiply whatever you feed it. Good habits make time your ally. Bad habits make time your enemy. And lastly, goals are about the results we want to achieve. Systems are about the processes that lead to those results. So I'll finish up on the other side of the break. I mean, again, hopefully, each of us has different things that we're trying to achieve, whether it's on the positive side of the good habits or the negative side of reducing those bad habits. But this book has a great framework for us to help us in each of those. So we're going to do a short break. Stick around, and we'll be right back.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio comes from independent realtor Chris Foster. Chris has served clients with everything real estate throughout Iowa since 2019. 641-891-8178 or online at the number 4 saleia.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio comes from the Catholic Tuition Organization. Reduce or eliminate your Iowa income tax and instead give to the Catholic Tuition Organization and receive 75% Iowa tax credits. These tax credits are going fast, so reserve yours today and learn more about the Catholic Tuition Organization at ctoiowa.org. ctoiowa.org. The bottom line, it's for the kids and their futures.
Catholic Tuition Organization, a great investment in our kids.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio provided by Mercy College of Health Sciences, where you can chart your course for more.
Mercy College provides unparalleled clinical rotations, hands-on learning, accelerated education, and flexible schedules. Since 1899, Mercy College has been transforming students into healthcare professionals. Guided by Catholic values, our faculty put classroom theory into practice. Students are prepared for roles in service and leadership throughout their own careers.
Learn more at mchs.edu. Mercy College of Health Sciences, mchs.edu.
Support for programming comes from Golden Rule Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, offering repairs, installations, and maintenance for the whole house, including heating and cooling systems and all things plumbing and electrical. Learn more at goldenrulephc.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by Ashworth Vision Clinic. Complete eye exams, contact lenses, glasses, glaucoma testing, and urgent eye issues. 515-440-4610. ashworthvision.com.
From Mitchellville to Maxwell and everywhere at iowacatholicradio.com or the Iowa Catholic Radio app. Listener-supported Iowa Catholic Radio, connecting listeners to Christ.
My help comes from you. You're right here.
Welcome back to Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio, finishing our thoughts on Atomic Habits by James Clear. Something I thought worth mentioning, something he calls the Goldilocks rule, which suggests that humans are most motivated when tasks are neither too easy nor too difficult. He discusses the importance of finding the right level of challenge to stay engaged and motivated. So this is a really great thing for us to have contextually. Again, back to the idea of a marathon runner, right? It's like if you can't run a marathon today, you're not going to run one tomorrow. So your goal needs to be, again, back to just, I'm going to put my shoes on. That's the first goal. Then maybe it's, I'm going to put my shoes on and run 1 mile. You have to find something, because if it's too boring, if it's just I'm putting my shoes on, a marathon runner, that's just too boring of a goal. You have to find something that is not too difficult and not too boring. And so same thing in prayer life. I heard a great talk from a guy I listened to who's a Eastern monk, essentially, and he's talking about the Desert Fathers, and he's saying how he's disappointed oftentimes how priests will only give, will tell people, if you just pray 2 minutes a day, just get 2 minutes in the morning. He goes, that's not enough. That's not enough. Even to start with, we need to pray more than that. He goes, that's not good enough for us, period. And so he goes, really you need to be striving for more. And so hopefully, each of us can find ways to build habits of getting to that at least 15, probably 20, 30 minutes of prayer every day. I look at the Bishop Barons of the world who are doing holy hours every day, and man, what a lofty goal, what an incredible goal to get to in prayer life. But, what are the things we can do today to build those habits, to become the kind of people who pray, the kind of people who are working at building habits of virtue every day in our lives. Thanks for joining me today on Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio. I am Joe Stopulos. It's time to man up.
Man Up, inspiring men to live out their call to holiness.